¿Qué lo que, mi gente? Aquí estamos, Latino Victory. Catherine, welcome. Bienvenido.
Gracias, encantada de estar aquí siempre. En Miami hace calor, hoy estamos un poquito nublados,
Right? So you brought the
pero
cold
I'm
with
glad
you.
to be here.
Yes. Oh, we're happy to have you here. The first time we met was at the Latino Victory Lunch, and that seems like years ago, even though it was maybe like 4 months ago. Since then, how have you been? What have you been up to?
Well, so a lot has changed, right? We had
Right.
these elections in November, and Latino Victory candidates did extremely well. We are very proud of the work that we do building the pipeline of support. And then also we had so many Latinos that participated in the election, the most I've ever been. So we have a lot to talk about and catch up on.
Definitely. But before all that, Catherine, how did you get into politics? You know what I mean? Like, you've obviously been working in politics for a while, and every time I have somebody here, I like to understand their origin story. It could be like the story of a hero, it's sometimes of a villain,
Right.
maybe both. So what got you into this space?
Well, as they say en el Cibao, aguilucha desde chiquitica.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say politics was always in my blood. When I was growing up in the DR, my grandmother and my parents were super active en la política, yendo a los meetings, which are the big political rallies that you see over there. They stop traffic for streets and streets and streets. So
In Santo Domingo.
In Santo Domingo. And I mean, pretty much everywhere in Latin America. You know, we're very motivated people politically. It's in our blood. So growing up, I always understood the connection between politics and power and impact. Because at the end of the day, it's how people live, right? How many times the garbage gets picked up, how your streets are paved, whether you have certain support services for the elderly,
Right.
schools, etc. So since I was a little girl, I always knew I wanted to be in politics. I took a different road. I wanted to go to law school and then get involved in politics. You know,
Did
the
you take your
typical
LSAT?
road. And then I did take the LSAT. I did extremely well. Got a scholarship to go to a good school.
But you didn't take
But
it.
in the end, I was already in the business. I had started while I was in college working at the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, NALEO.
cool.
Some people know NALEO. And I always give them a plug because that's really how I started to understand the lack of representation problem that we have here in the States, right? We are about 19% of the population, but we only 2%
Of elected officials.
elected officials. So
That's both male and female, right? Like that, not just
both male and female, but the majority are male, and which is something, by the way, that at Latino Victory we're trying to change. This year, 60% of our endorsed candidates were women. And by the way, not one Afro-Latina in Congress out of the 56 Latino members. So it's still a battle, right, to
So
build
work to
that
be done.
representation.
Would you say that there was like one moment, or was it a sequence of events that kind of geared you toward this? Like, if you had to reflect on your life, was it like this one instance where you could say, I want to be in politics, or I want to be in this space? You know what I'm saying? Like, fue un momento, or was it a string of events?
Absolutely. I could name a string of events that have confirmed my desire to work in this business. But I will tell you, there is a moment that most people don't know. This is the first time I get asked that question. So I am volunteering to register people to vote at a big street festival in New York City. And my grandmother happened to be here from the DR visiting. I was there with my group, doing the work. She was going around shopping for little trinkets at the street fair. And at one point, they called me up to the stage to say a few words about the importance of voting because it was National Voter Registration Day coming up, which every year is in September. So I get up to the stage, I say my spiel and tell people why they should register. And when I got off the stage, my grandmother says, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you." And so, exactly.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I was like, okay, esto es lo que yo voy a hacer. This is what I'm going to do.
I'm gonna
That's
keep
it.
doing it. I want to keep making my grandma proud.
I want to keep making my grandma proud.
Do you think that was maybe the start of your media training? Most guests that I have aren't on media as much as you are. So what do you think is versus obviously we're doing a podcast. Do you think media is something that people are born with? Can you be trained for it? You know what I'm trying to ask you? Like, is what's that experience versus kind of like a setting like this?
There's definitely media training that people can take, but I feel like it's on the job training. You could be on a show and it could be the most boring thing in the world. People don't ask you anything that is not already
Substantive.
exactly or
Sure.
is not already known, right? So by the way, I love this new medium that we use, right? Podcasts, I feel, are really an opportunity to dig into the issues and to have real conversations, right? A lot of the times, if I'm on TV, I'm talking from bullet points, right?
Or like from an authority position.
Absolutely, but also prepared remarks almost. You really want to hit those sound bites.
Just so don't have that much time.
When you're in a podcast like this, we're
Yeah.
just, we're chilling, we're talking, and
Sure.
it's a little bit more unscripted. So I love the fact that we can get into the topics and give people real information.
You know, you brought up something that I always ask my guests at the end, but I think we can work this in now because you brought it up.
We're all
Like,
over the place.
Sí, pero, for example, I like to explore the theme of money and power. Obviously, in politics, and with your mission statement of building political power in the Latino community, you have to have conversations about money and power. So, what I ask my guests towards the end is usually, what do you like? It's kind of like a what came first, the chicken or the egg? So, what came first, money or power? You know what I'm saying? Like, and what's that relationship, and how do you use it to achieve your political goals? So, what would you say is more important, money or power?
I think they're interconnected. You can't have one without the other. In the work that I do. So campaigns cost money. At Latino Victory,
Lots of it.
yes, very expensive. At Latino Victory, we try to support every candidate we endorse with both a hard side contribution to their campaigns, but also depending on the race and other factors, we would also invest in those campaigns on the independent expenditure side. So a lot of the work that we do at Latino Victory as a national PAC really is raise money to support our candidates, and then therefore building political power within the Latino community.
Okay. When you say political power, because here's one thing, my audience is comprised of people I went to school with, my peers. I'm 27. Everybody here at this office right
Your
now.
family.
Sí, la familia. Even though la mayoría de mi familia está en Cuba todavía.
Okay.
But below 30-year-olds, Gen Zers, millennials,
Mm-hmm.
we don't understand. Obviously, I studied this. This is my profession.
Right.
But a lot of people don't understand what a PAC is, even what Latino Victory does. So elementary school, this real quick.
Yeah.
What does Latino Victory do? And how does it operate? And in this political ecosystem, what's his role? What people typically see is candidate, election. But nothing on the back end of it. You know what I mean? So
No, totally. And I will tell you, right, might not even understand the struggle for political power, because the fact is, right, if you're born here, maybe don't necessarily even speak Spanish. I tell you, my son, who is going to be 21 next month, it says to me, well, why should I vote, right? So keeping it basic, I could understand why a lot of listeners might not know why this is even important or why it matters, right? So why are we building Latino political power, and what is Latino political power? I'll give you an example to illustrate this election. All the talk was about the Latino vote, right? And how we were going to make how we're going to make a difference. And why that matters is because then politicians pay attention to our communities. And the fact is, we have a lot of challenges. When people talk about higher education and affordability, being able to rent an apartment or buy a house or get an opportunity for a good job or sending, kids to college, right? It's really connected to who's in power, who they're paying attention to, and what the values are that they bring to the table every time they're in a room where they make decisions about our community. So what we do at Latino Victory is we want to make sure that Latinos come out to vote, because that gives us power. When Latinos are a portion of the electorate that makes decisions, then politicians will pay
You can't
attention
ignore
to
us.
what we're doing. Exactly. You can't
Yeah.
ignore us. So that's number one, right? We want Latinos to come out to vote. By the way, we know that when Latinos are on the ballot, Latinos vote also.
Right, because we're all this. Yeah, no, I get
Because
you.
we gotta
Si tú tienes
support
un
each
Gonzalez
other.
or un Fernandez on there, you're going to come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then also, of course, we understand Latinos need to be in the rooms where decisions are made. So if anybody's heard of the Broadway show Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda, one of the songs is, right, in the room where it happens. So that's where we want to be, because that's what's going to create impact in our communities.
I think in Miami, we're a little spoiled.
We
Because
are.
since we're all, the majority of people in Miami are Latino, whether they just came or their generation, they've already been here. When I've traveled the United States, there are not that many Hispanics. And I feel like people in Miami don't understand that when you go to Nevada, when you go to Arizona, while there might be a large Hispanic population, it's nowhere near what it's like in Miami. And I kind of like our little microcosm.
Like our
of
little
Latin America.
Havana. Little Havana is not just a neighborhood anymore. It's
No.
the whole city, right? No, but let me give you an example. Here in Miami, where you have a majority of students in public schools that are Latino, we don't have Latino members of the school board. So,
No.
for example, I know you supported Max Tuckman,
Yes.
who is a Latina, a kick-ass Latina.
No,
at
she's super
that.
cool.
Super cool.
Well, she was in tech, a founder.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it was important to support someone like Max, because we need that representation when people are talking about bilingual education in schools, when people are talking about ESL programs, when people are talking about school meal
You brought me
programs.
back. I was in ESOL.
So I know. So was I. Bro, I came here when I was 14. So I definitely was a beneficiary of that support that, kids sometimes don't get now. So that's one thing. Certainly in communities where we're a majority of the population, we want to make sure that we have our representation. But I will tell you, I think Latinos should be running all over the country, in all communities.
But we live everywhere.
Because we live everywhere,
literally
right?
live
We might
everywhere.
not be concentrated, but we
No.
live everywhere.
There's Latinos in Montana.
And Nebraska.
Yup.
As a matter of fact, there was a Latino running for Congress in Nebraska, the 2nd Congressional District, that made national headlines because when the race for president was super tight, in terms of the number of electoral votes in the polling, of course. And as we all know, polling is polling is polling. The only poll that counts is election day.
Say,
So one of the things that was being discussed was that maybe it would become a tie in terms of electoral votes, and that one district in Nebraska was going to be
decided.
It'd be the deciding vote. So Latinos are everywhere, and again, it's about putting us in the rooms where decisions are made.
Now, going back to that question of access, do you think it falls upon the electorate, meaning the voters, to get that access, or is that something that should be given? So, for example, a lot of the times, especially when I speak to my peers, it's almost a little bit of a sense of entitlement. I'll be honest that I give a criticism to people my age because es como que se sienten que me lo tienes que dar todo, ¿verdad? So is this
Entitlement.
Yeah. So is this seat at the table, is this given or is it earned?
Nobody gives you shit. Sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to say
dale,
that.
rompe.
Nobody gives you anything. I think as a community, we have to understand the history of this country, right? And the history of this country, as anywhere else in the world, is that you have to fight for your rights. And so you do that really by becoming active, being engaged, and then certainly, again, pushing for that space. Because if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
No. Sam, you got to put that, make sure in the captions. That was good. Okay. We don't want to be on the menu. Yo estoy aquí para comer, no para que me coman.
Exactly.
Okay. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of running this organization? Is it getting the candidates? Is it raising donations? Is it the voter engagement? And I guess it's like a two-pronged question where what is, I guess, the hardest part of politics overall, right? Like, out of all the components that you do in politics.
Well, so let me tell you a little bit about Latino Victory. So Latino Victory is a national organization with this mission, right, of empowering the Latino community. But you don't do that. There's no silver bullet, right? You do that in a number of different ways. So we're also the only national organization. There's many Latino organizations that are doing great work nationally, but we're the only one that has a three-pronged approach. So we are a 501c3, which is a tax designation organization, tax exempt. And the C3's job is really to uplift the Latino community through a lot of work around nonpartisan voter registration, nonpartisan voter education. For example, this cycle we did a bunch of town halls and events with Telemundo and Univision. We also do cultural programming to uplift Latinos who are in positions of power, whether in the nonprofit, corporate, or music sectors, arts. And it's really about making sure that Latinos remain a vibrant part of our community from the nonpartisan nonprofit perspective. Then we have a C4 organization, which is an advocacy organization. That's
C3, C4.
correct.
And these are all different nonpartisan designations.
Correct. By the tax code, right? And so, for example, if you donate to the Latino Victory Foundation, which is our C3, it's tax deductible, which, by the way, corporate partners love.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure.
There you go. So the C4 organization, which is the Latino Victory Project, is more of an advocacy organization, and we could focus on issues that impact the Latino community. So, for example, this year we worked for the third cycle in a row on a program called Vote Like a Madre, which is really an effort to engage Latino voters around the issue of climate change and saying, hey, you should vote, and by the way, you should consider climate change and preserving the world that we live in for generations to come. Yeah. And so there was clear messaging around climate and climate action as part of your voting plan. We've also worked on immigration issues and issues around education and healthcare and so on and so forth. So as an advocacy organization, then we can engage voters differently because now it's about issues. Those contributions are not tax deductible, but again, you know, we have a lot of corporate partners that want to engage on those issues because it matters to them as well, right? If you think about other hurricanes that we have, all the fires, la sequía,
sí, la cosa
se ha puesto feísima. No súper caliente. Entonces, eso no es algo así que pasó por casualidad. It's not a coincidence that all these climate events have increased in intensity and frequency. Yep. It's really that we are undergoing climate change and people need to take that into account. So if you have a policy around the country that supports climate action, then obviously we are working to preserve that world that we live in. If we have policy that doesn't support climate action or that takes away protections for our environment, we're going to be in trouble, right? And so that's one example. And then the last entity is the Latino Victory Fund, which is our super PAC. And it's a hybrid. And we take contributions to the super PAC so that we could then pass them on to endorse candidates that we support and we train. And then also do independent expenditures in the races where it makes a difference. I think that's where people
no entienden. Like, because you have a campaign, but then you have a PAC. Right? And obviously both these entities work in campaigning,
right?
But one has a certain set of rules, the other one doesn't. So
and we can't coordinate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the most important.
It's not like the PAC can be like, no, say this.
Yeah.
Technically, these are two separate things that attempt to achieve the same goal. So, and that was the event that I went to.
Correct.
was for the PAC.
Correct. Correct.
Hmm.
And within the PAC, again, the candidates and the PAC cannot coordinate activities, and the reason is because you don't want to violate any campaign contribution limits with the individual campaigns. But it's an opportunity also to give a different angle, right? If you're a candidate, you're going to run your race based on your
The
track
messaging's different.
record. Absolutely. You're going to run your race based on your personal story, what you want to do, so on and so forth. As a PAC, we have the ability to frame it a little differently, right?
More issue based.
We could always come at it from the representation factor, right? Where we want to, for example, get more Latinos in the local school board or Congress. So there's always that, but specifically, we can then make it more issue based as well. So, for example, in the case of Darren Soto, who is a member of Congress in the Orlando area, the first Puerto Rican from Florida to represent in that community.
You would think, con todos los puertorriqueños que están en Orlando, the first one.
The first one, exactly. But let me tell you, there was a lot of outside money that was spent to try to get him out of that community. Because, as you know, this was a big election year, and the Republicans and the Democrats were fighting for control of the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
So the Republicans, he's a Democrat, the Republicans spent millions and millions of dollars in ads against him, and of course also for Trump in that area, because they were trying to engage Puerto Rican voters to support the Republican candidate. So, again, for us, it was important to protect him. And so we spent some dollars supporting his candidacy as well. And that's how super PACs can be meaningful.
Right.
Because
the independent expenditure.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes campaigns aren't able to expense that much, especially with what an ad might cost. Like, uno de estos comerciales can be upwards of $30,000, $40,000.
Oh, my
just
God.
to put one 30-second clip on TV.
Exactly. So, or even more, right? Let's not even talk about the Super Bowl. So,
Right.
and what these companies spend to put ads in the Super Bowl, it's unbelievable. But in honesty, this election cycle and November was like the Super Bowl.
It was the Super Bowl of politics.
For politics.
For sure.
Because we know that there was more money spent than ever before.
That's every presidential year, right? It just
keeps
keep
going up,
up,
right? But hey, I'm excited again that this year, and by the way, Latino Victory is a progressive democratic organization. This year, even though we saw tons of losses as a nation, right, with now a Republican who's going to be president and control of the House and Senate, us at Latino Victory are very proud of having
held seats.
supported. We not only held seats, but we also got new candidates elected all over the country, over 60 in 22 states. So I'm super excited about that and seeing that Latino representation number keep going up. It clearly works.
You guys were founded in 2014. A decade later, I want you to kind of tell me a little bit about the before and now, right? Like, you have a start. Every place starts somewhere, and you're working towards this increasing Latino representation at all levels of government. What has happened in that decade?
So in 2014, Eva Longoria and Henry Munoz III came up with this novel idea, right? To create an organization that really focused on this representation issue, which, by the way, we're still building. Since then, Latino Victory has supported and endorsed over 500 candidates over our history, right? And helped elect over 300 Latinos to public office. So it's a great history in building that pipeline. By the way, we've also trained hundreds and hundreds
I feel like
candidates.
that is something that people can't even fathom, that, like, you're just not born one day and you have a suit on and you just go and be the politician, right? Like, there's no school for this. There's no crash course. So training candidates, I think, is something that, when I started this, I was like, you train candidates? I thought you just were. You
No,
know?
no, no, no. You have to train because at the end of the day, it's like anything else. You know that the term political science, it's the thing that
See,
people study in school, right? Well,
right.
I
That's what my
study
degree
political
says.
science. Exactly.
Right.
I study political science as well. It's a science, right? 90% of it really is about making sure you have effective messaging, that you're connecting with the electorate, that you're doing so in a consistent way. They say it takes about 7 to 9 touches for a
You're
voter.
talking campaigns now.
Exactly,
Ahora tú estás
for a
hablando de campaña.
voter to really connect with the message and be motivated to come out
And
to
that
vote.
and just to go off of that point, that could be a door knock, that could be a mailer, that could be a phone call, that could be a text, that could be a radio hit, that could be a Facebook ad
Exactly.
now, which are becoming very popular. So,
A podcast.
tú me entendiste, tú me entendiste. Pero these touches obviously all cost money, cost
Yes.
resources. And I think like, especially for a lay person that doesn't really understand this building of power, that this is a strenuous process. It's not like, oh, flip a switch and now Arizona has all these Latinos voted into office, you know? So obviously not the results that we wanted, right, for the elections now that we have President Trump in office, but there was something that happened in the Latino community where you saw a shift of Latinos voting Republican. Why do you think that happened, and like what happened? Like, just in your view, porque this was historic. The
Right.
amount of Latinos that went right.
Well, it is and it isn't. Let's go back a little bit. First of all, Trump had a victory this year, um, not just within the Latino community, but a lot of
All
white people
communities.
voted for him,
Yeah.
and some African Americans as well, and Asians, and within the Muslim community, the Arab community. So honestly, I don't think Latinos need to take the blame for electing Donald Trump.
But I feel like the news has really been like,
Oh,
no,
no,
it was the Hispanics.
Exactly. Oh my God. No quieren
Yeah.
echar la culpa.
Sí.
Pero no, esto fue algo que realmente it was a statement that the majority of voters made. And, you know, again, it's the popular vote, it's electoral votes. If you look at the map, there's a lot of red. So I think this is a moment for Democrats to really have conversations around what failed with our messaging, what failed with our campaigning, and no nos podemos meter la cabeza en la tierra como el avestruz.
Yeah.
We can't, you know, hide our head on the
Is
fact.
Vestruz an ostrich?
Avestruz.
Is that an ostrich?
Avestruz.
See, look, I didn't know what that was, but I was like, okay.
And I hope I said it correctly.
No, I
Avestruz.
was like, I've never heard that before. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like at the bottom line, at the end of the day, we lost.
Yeah.
So let's start there. And it's not just the Latino community. It's overall there was a failure of the Democratic message to connect. Now, again, for me, happy that we got a lot of Latinos elected, but at the top of the ticket, and certainly what's going to happen in the next 2 years as we move towards the midterm elections, and in the next 4 years as we have another shot at getting the White House, we really need some deep soul searching and rejiggering of how we do things. Having said that, what happened with Latinos? There's always been about 30% of Latinos who voted Republican. And as a matter of fact, 42% voted for Bush. So the Trump number is higher than certainly anyone expected. And I think it goes to many, many things, right? I'm going to be real. There's a certain level of machismo that went into it, right? We had also a candidate in Kamala Harris who only campaigned for a little over 100 days. Let's not miss the fact that she had not been in the race prior to and this summer, and that's not enough time. So Trump did also have a time advantage for him to build his message that that the Democratic candidate didn't. So there was time. There was also clearly a lot of disappointment in the electorate around how things were going in this country and the Biden administration. So to a certain degree,
there wasn't that much differentiating.
No,
it's hard when
exactly.
you're the VP.
Well, they didn't give they didn't give the VP enough credit for the
Sí,
good things that the Biden administration did, but certainly they gave her all the blame for
sí, sí.
the things that folks thought were going wrong. And yes, when she came out of the gate, there was not enough differentiation in people's minds between what the Biden Harris administration had been and what the Harris Walz administration would be. So so that's another factor. And frankly, I would argue also, in addition to like not enough differentiation and not enough time and a certain level of machismo and racism and sexism, all thrown into the mix. Let's also be real. The campaign strategy also could use an uplift, because the fact is that a lot of the dollars, and she raised over $1 billion.
Didn't go into our community. Or didn't go to a strategy.
Yes.
Dame un comercial en español.
No, y
Dame
una
algo.
cancioncita y un jingle.
You need you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? If you have a jingle, at least here in Miami, that's at least like 20,000 votes, like right there.
Just for the jingle. Dame una cancioncita, una salsita, un merenguito, whatever.
Oh my God, that's so true.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of the campaign strategy, not enough went into our communities to really hit the message home. So I think, and by the way, whatever little did come in came in too late, and you can't parachute into a community a month before and think that people are going to vote for you.
And I'll put it like this, and this is just a criticism of especially my community, estos cubanos. Tú no puedes meterle muela, tú no puedes meterle droga, and you have to come at us how we like, which is, I feel like every time that a politician tries to speak in Spanish, even si tienen un acento así, we appreciate that. We appreciate the effort.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And to actually come visit us and to speak to what we care about. I think one thing in Latinos is that we are the largest group of entrepreneurs. Out of any of the minorities, right? So we have the most small businesses, whether it's cooking, cleaning, even this one, consulting, lo que sea.
Una bodega.
Sí, una bodega, yeah. So I do agree that the messaging wasn't aimed to speaking to what we cared about. Obviously, we care about the country, the bigger picture, but there's a sense of primacy, right? Like, if I don't have money to feed my kids, how could I care about the
democracy
or the environment?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the environment isn't going to put my kid through school.
Right.
You know? So I would love to see, and that's what we're doing in New Jersey now, which is interesting because I can tell you that the strategy has completely changed before the election to now after the election. I would love to see it where, at least for the Latino strategy, they're involving seeing us more of a stakeholder, I would say. Like, you just want to, eso, hay Latinos in rural areas. You can't keep going to just the cities, the strongholds, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, one thing that we always say is that Latinos are not a monolith, right? Mm-hmm. We are a very diverse community, not just in terms of where we come from, right? Because people very much identify first country,
Dominicans versus
and
Puerto
then,
Ricans versus the Cubans.
First country and then Latinos, right?
Right.
But also, in terms of race and gender and where we live and professional background and financial background, there's a lot of Latinos that are very wealthy as well, as many Latinos that are struggling. So you can't put us all in one box and be like, oh, okay,
This is the Latino strategy.
Exactly. This is a Latino strategy. No. You have to have multiple strategies. And by the way, you got to look at also the Latinos that are immigrants, like my parents, but then also like immigrants like myself that came as a teenager, and then perhaps someone who's a third generation Cuban, who, by the way, is not going to think the same way as the guy who came in the Marielito, right? So that's the real, I think, trick to understanding the Latino strategy,
it's
Latino
not a
community.
one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Katharine, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. Guys, make sure that you support Latino Victory. Like you said, Tax deductible, y'all. Come on. Like, put your money where your mouth is, okay? Visítalo at latinovictory.org. Catherine, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.